Didn't get that part.
Kevin Harvick.
Kevin Harvick. Okay. That would seem to be important.
Yeah, a little bit.
A little bit. All right. Our buddy Matt Weaver from Auto Week hops on. Matt, how are you, first off?
Good. There's no shortage of news, and given the current state of affairs that we find ourselves in, I guess that's really all you can ask for.
Well, I think most of it for NASCAR is good news. We've had you on when there's been bad news, but I think most of it is good news. First off, do we have any health update on Bubba Wallace?
Yeah, Bubba's good. I think Bubba was just dehydrated. I talked to his cousin, who is actually from Mobile, too, of course, does media up in the Knoxville area, and he's good. He was just a little dehydrated. 500 miles in Atlanta in mid-June is not something they're accustomed to doing. There's a reason why the race in Atlanta is typically scheduled historically for either right now March, and it's an afternoon race, or it's a September night race, or even historically it used to be the November championship race. Under typical circumstances, you're not having Atlanta in the middle of the afternoon in mid-June for a reason. And you saw Ryan Newman, he was gassed.
Right.
Jimmy Johnson and Corey LaJoie, they shared their health monitors. That race was a challenge for everyone involved.
Well, that's one of the things. How do you simulate that? Because you really can't. Unless you put the simulator in a sauna, how do you simulate the driving conditions is something I thought we'd see. Honestly, I thought we'd see a Bubba Wallace reaction much sooner than we have. I know they've cut some races shorter than originally scheduled as they've gone from, miles to kilometers. But I was concerned that, as much shape as these guys can still be in, you just can't simulate 500 miles.
No, but the interesting thing was Jimmy Johnson, 7-time champion, he had shared his heart rate monitor, and he actually was around the same rate, the same area that he is during his workouts. And, these guys are all so smart. I've actually been into the Toyota process a little bit, and they offer a health regimen, a fitness regimen that simulates to the best of its ability what you go through inside of a race car. And they have fine-tuned all of this, the heart rates, the pulse monitors. They figured out how to kind of put the body through, certain rigors and trials to at least get you as close to the fitness level you need to be inside the race car. It's a very high-tech thing they've got. They have all these drivers hooked up to different monitors. They can look at it. They can kind of disseminate it. And, it's actually pretty good. The thing with Bubba Wallace to keep in mind is he drives for a mid-pack team, Richard Petty Motorsports. And so when you look at the front of the field, the way that they kind of seal the cars off to generate downforce, the way they close off the windows, they're all looking for a fraction of a tenth. Richard Petty Motorsports isn't as good as a Joe Gibbs Racing or Hendrick Motorsports, and I think that kind of reflects in their cooling systems as well. And that's why I think, Ryan Newman and Bubba Wallace, they were two of the ones that were more so gassed than others because they were just kind of working at, I wouldn't say a health deficiency, but certainly they're not as equipped as some of the other teams to deal with it.
It's very, very interesting on how that works out. Is he going to? And we're back on regular schedule, right? So we're just going to go race this weekend again.
Yeah, I wouldn't say we're on schedule, but there was a schedule that came out last week that kind of gets us close. There are certain races that were going to have dates that are no longer going to have dates. I mean, this race at Martinsville on Wednesday night, that was supposed to be last month. It was the first ever scheduled night race at Martinsville, and now it's going to be in the middle of the week. But there's a schedule that runs through August 2nd, and this schedule now puts us at, if you assume the playoff races are still going to be the same, which NASCAR has said from day one they wanted to do, then you're at 35 races instead of 36. I think that the fall race at Dover is going to be turned into a doubleheader, and that gets you to 36. And like we talked about before, that's the magic number. That's the TV number, and that's the way to get all the teams and all the employees, all the crew members paid.
All right, what about your reaction to what NASCAR did right before the race in terms of, as we're talking to Matt Weaver here on from Auto Week, on a Monday afternoon Game Plan Sports Radio 105.5 WNSP. What'd you think about what they did prior to the race starting, dealing with the protests and the riots?
So, to me, I think the words were important. I think what Jeff Gordon said at the start of the broadcast was very powerful. The message sent out by NASCAR President Steve Phelps was very meaningful, but they're just words. And, it's one thing to have words. It's another thing to have actions. And I think you've got to back up the words with action now. I will not say that I'm going to speak for everyone, but I've grown up in the racing community my entire life. And right, wrong, or indifferent, there is a stereotype about NASCAR fans and
Correct.
the culture and the personality that is largely earned. I'm not saying that it's the same as it's always been, but you go to a race at Talladega, you see the Confederate flags, and listen, I've heard the argument my whole life. I'm from Mobile. Heritage, not hate. That's bogus. That's just real facts here. Let's call that out. So it's one thing to have words and say that you're going to be better, you're going to do better, but you got to start being better. We're only 2 years removed from Richard Childress and Richard Petty both saying that they would fire employees who knelt. There was a NASCAR employee, a black official, who kneeled during the anthem and during the invocation before the race on Sunday. Powerful
right.
Visual.
Yes.
2 years ago, I'm not sure the response would be the same.
Right.
Now, that shows change. That shows awareness, and that's what this entire process has been about nationally. It's about finally having some honest conversations. And NASCAR certainly has a place at that table that they need to have some, not only conversations with the rest of the world, but also internally amongst themselves. But more important than the conversation and than the talking, they need to do some listening. There's a lot of people, Bubba Wallace especially, has been driving this conversation. He and Ty Dillon had a great conversation on Instagram. I encourage everyone to listen to it about why this conversation is important. And I'm so relieved that NASCAR is following suit. But again, words are just words until they're backed up with action.
Well, it's going to be very interesting because one of the, byproducts of what's going on, so far it's been relatively quiet. I haven't seen anybody say anything about it other than, some Confederate statues have been coming down across the nation, including one here in Mobile. What are the chances that NASCAR says, you can't tailgate with, when they do bring back fans, you can't tailgate with the Confederate flag anymore?
It's going to be tough because NASCAR tried to encourage this conversation a couple of years ago, and the offer they made to fans, to me, at face value, made a lot of sense. It was, if you have a Confederate flag, we're not banning it, but we're going to try to entice you. We will give you a brand new Old Glory. We'll give you the red, white, and blue if you trade in your Confederate flag. And the numbers that were exchanged were very small.
Right.
And
right.
To me, that's not enough because they're not going to willingly do it. The thing is, it's challenging is you're not going to see that at any other sporting event. You're not going to see it in any other walk of life. But I don't think any other sport needs to ban it because that's not part of the historical culture. I do think that we might be crossing the point where NASCAR might have to do it, and that's going to rub people the wrong way. But you can't say what you said on Sunday. You can't have the president of the sport have those words. They would be stripped of meaning if they were not backed up with action, and I do think that's probably an action, my opinion, they need to take.
Well, it's going to be very interesting if that does, because all of a sudden then NASCAR ends up being kind of leading in that direction. Speaking of fans, is there any time that fans are coming back?
Yeah, that was kind of one of the bigger stories of the past week, kind of knocked a hole in ourselves a little bit. There was an anticipation that Indianapolis, which was a big NASCAR, IndyCar doubleheader for the first time ever, the Cup Series, the Xfinity Series, and IndyCar, all at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, Independence Day weekend. There was some hope that fans would be allowed to return in time for that, and they came out last week and said no fans. So right now, we have no idea. I don't know what the current timeline is. There's a lot of conversation inside the garage area that we might not be able to have fans back until there is a vaccine. Now, fortunately, it seems like there's been great progress made there. 1,000 veterans and essential workers are going to be allowed into Homestead on Sunday. That's a start. It's 1,000 fans in a place that seats 40, 50. So I know that's not the news that a lot of people want to hear.
Right.
But I think we're in this for a while.
Right. Right. Too bad. I don't think any guests. I know a lot of people from when they were holding that race as a championship race, the final race of the year, they'd stay down in the Keys. But I don't think they can do that. I think they can stay in the Keys, but not at the private club that I was at. Matt Weaver.
Yeah, they finally opened the Keys up a couple of weeks ago, and that was always a favorite trip of mine, too. And it's not going to happen this year.
Yeah. Matt Weaver, I appreciate you coming on. You said some very interesting things. We'll see if because two of the whitest sports we have is golf and NASCAR, and NASCAR's been back and golf is coming back this weekend. So it'll be very interesting to see on how both those sports react to what's going on.
Absolutely. Good talking to you guys. Let's do it again.
Thanks, Matt. Wow. Well, he went there. That even I know that would be pushing it if you didn't allow the Confederate flag to come into NASCAR races.
Yep. I go to Talladega every year.
Yeah.
I stay out in the campground.
Sure.
You're not taking away that flag from a lot of people.
No.
I mean, that's just the way it is for a lot of those people.
Right.
And that they wouldn't give them away without some sort of little bit of fight.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. You may not have to worry about it. He said 1,000 people in Homestead. So I as somebody who used to know somebody who used to work at that track, and you know this, you do it. You are the NASCAR fan, right? Most NASCAR fans, they used to, before the economy tanked in 2008, would drive 500 miles to a race for a weekend.
Oh,
race.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
That was the average deal. The problem was Homestead is in the middle, it's not in the middle of nowhere. It's the end of nowhere.
Right.
I mean, it's one thing when you're going from Atlanta to Charlotte to Bristol.
A lot of these races, we're racing in Atlanta. They're not in Atlanta. They're in Hampton, Georgia. I mean, a lot of these races are not. You got to get to them, and we've seen the numbers. TV numbers are up now for unrelated to just the sport. It's because it's the only sport.
Yeah, it's the only thing on.
But you've started to see some attendance numbers rebound last year at some of these tracks a little bit. There's still the tracks that struggle and are in jeopardy of losing a race or two.
I'm absolutely fascinated what's going to happen next year. Okay, we'll just say for the sake of argument, during these challenging times, our state has deemed auto body repair an essential service. Professional Collision's 7 locations along the Gulf Coast are currently open and ready to serve. They're here to make the repair process as safe and as easy as possible by offering vehicle pickup and delivery, as well as curbside drop-off, check-in, and estimating services. Don't let auto body repair needs add to your stress. Visit them today or find them online at professional-collision.com, professional-collision.com. All right. You think we can have this conversation? Would you not go to a NASCAR race if they didn't allow you to bring in the Confederate flag?
I don't give a damn about it.
Well, not you. I'm just in general.
I mean,
that would be the thing.
And, I think
if we can have, I'm not getting into the meaning of the flag or anything. I'm just answering that question.
And I may go so far to suggest that Talladega, Alabama might maybe have more present Confederate flags than any track they go to.
Okay.
But I will say, I mean, it's not like so in your face. I mean, they are there, but there really might not be as many as you think.
You mean talking at the race? I'm talking outside the race.
On the property.
I'm talking about people bringing them in and tailgating. That's what I'm talking about.
Because if they're not out,
how do they get them in? Were they waving them during the race?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. It would be out,
No, because then you got to hold on to a flag all day long.
It'd be out in the campgrounds or in the infield.
That's what I mean.
But I mean, you could probably make the rule easily for the infield because that's inside the track, and that you will be on camera during the TV broadcast.
Right.
If that's even
but those are the people who spend lots of money.
Sure.
Okay.
I mean, but still, I'm
with you.
I understand that there might be a few people it would it would.
It's going to bother more than a few people. But I want to know if it would stop people from. I mean, apparently, I saw some people. You never know if they're a bot or not. But I saw some people say that I know why he was kneeling. I still didn't like why he was kneeling. I haven't watched an NFL game since. Now I don't know how true that is, but I've seen people say that in the Twitterverse. I mean, I don't know. Some guy was trying to sue. Remember that we brought it up. Some guy was trying to sue the Saints for the money for his season tickets because they took that knee in England.
But
good luck with that.
Them getting it out of the infield, maybe that could be done. But when you're talking about,
that could be a start.
And now we stay out in the free campground by choice. We do that on purpose because it's
free,
wild and crazy, and a good time out there, and that's where we like to be.
Okay.
Not because it's free. We like we like the environment.
All right.
If you know what I mean.
I forget he's independently wealthy.
No. But it's,
yes.
There's a different vibe out there in the free campground.
Right. Sure.
But. Trying to tell those people what to do.
There's a Miller Lite vibe.
Yeah, big time.
Compared to a Michelob Ultra vibe.
Maybe so. Maybe so. Probably a Natty Light vibe.
Right.
But
right.
Still, it's gonna be. I don't know, man. And if
it's gonna be interesting because he kind of. I mean, he started talking about it, and I sort of let him there. And
yeah,
I mean, Matt Weaver knows this much more about this, and you know more about it than I do. I mean, if that's the case, that's where NASCAR would be taking a lead in this and not following.
Well, and
we'll see
their message pre-race yesterday, I thought it was great. I mean, they're trying to change the stereotype that has followed their sport forever. And I mean, I think
there's an issue.
I think it's more important for NASCAR to gain new fans than try to be backwards in your ways to retain the ones you got.